Welcome to our deep dive, on how to win friends and influence people.
Oh, yeah.
This book has been a bestseller for almost a century.
It really has.
And you specifically mentioned wanting to, sharpen those social skills, maybe, for that presentation you've got coming up.
Right.
We're going to try to extract the timeless wisdom from Dale Carnegie's classic
Absolutely.
and see what clicks for you today.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Carnegie wasn't some ivory tower academic.
Right.
He was a speaker and a teacher who saw firsthand, what made people tick.
Yeah.
His book is almost like a field guide to human interaction. And
I like that.
its longevity shows just how universal these principles are.
Okay, so the book's divided into 4 parts.
Okay.
The first one is all about fundamental techniques in handling people.
Okay.
And right off the bat, he throws down this gauntlet. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Wow.
I mean, ouch, right. We've all been on the receiving end of that.
Like nails on a chalkboard for the soul. Carnegie argues that criticism is rarely effective.
Okay.
It triggers defensiveness, and people just tune you out.
Makes sense.
Instead, he suggests trying to understand where people are coming from
Okay.
and focusing on their good points.
So instead of nitpicking, we should be handing out compliments like candy.
Well, not quite a sugar rush, but the idea is genuine, heartfelt appreciation.
Okay.
There's this story in the book about a janitor who completely transformed his workplace relationships
Really?
just by remembering everyone's name and offering a kind word. That's sincere appreciation in action.
Wow. Talk about making an impact.
Right.
It shows that you're paying attention, not just throwing out empty flattery.
Exactly.
You mentioned wanting to connect better with colleagues.
Yeah,
And that story really highlights how these small gestures can make a huge difference.
absolutely. It's about recognizing the good in others,
Yeah.
not just trying to butter them up.
Okay, that's solid first technique.
Yeah.
What else does Carnegie have up his sleeve in this section?
Well, he talks about the importance of arousing in the other person an eager want,
Oh, okay.
which sounds a bit manipulative, I know.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's really about understanding what makes people tick
Okay.
and framing your ideas in a way that aligns with their desires.
So not pulling a Machiavelli,
Right.
but finding that sweet spot where your goals and theirs overlap.
Exactly. Let's say you're trying to get your team on board with a new project.
Okay.
Instead of just listing the tasks,
Right.
highlight how it will benefit them. Maybe it'll allow them to learn new skills or take on more responsibility.
So it's about understanding their motivations, not just dictating orders.
Yes.
It's like that saying, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Spot on. And that leads perfectly into the next section, which is all about 6 ways to make people like you.
Oh, okay.
I think we all want to be liked, wouldn't you say?
Who wouldn't? Let's unpack these 6 ways. I'm all ears.
The first one is deceptively simple. Become genuinely interested in other people.
Okay.
This isn't just about asking polite questions. It's about actively listening, trying to see the world through their eyes.
I'll admit sometimes I get so caught up in my own head that I forget to really tune in to what others are saying.
It happens.
Do you have any tips for becoming a better listener?
Well, resist the urge to jump in with your own thoughts right away.
Okay.
Focus on what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Yeah.
Ask clarifying questions. Summarize what you've heard to make sure you understand.
It's like that quote, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply.
Yes.
I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
We all are. It's a constant practice.
Yeah.
Now, another surprisingly powerful way to make people like you is to smile.
Oh, okay.
Carnegie believed a smile is a nonverbal signal that disarms people instantly.
It sounds almost too easy, but think about it. A genuine smile is contagious.
Right.
You can't help but smile back. It lightens the mood immediately.
Exactly. And then there's something we often overlook. Remembering names.
Ooh, yeah?
Carnegie said a person's name is the sweetest sound to their ears.
Oh, it is.
Now, I know you mentioned you struggle with this.
Oh, I'm terrible with names.
Yeah.
It's like they go in one ear and straight out the other.
One trick is to repeat the person's name back to them when you first meet.
Huh?
Like, it's nice to meet you, Sarah.
Oh, that's good.
And try using it naturally throughout the conversation. It
Oh.
shows you're paying attention and value them.
Okay, I'm going to make a conscious effort to do that.
Yeah.
What are the other 3 ways to make people like you?
They all build on this foundation of genuine interest and respect.
Yeah.
Being a good listener, talking in terms of the other person's interests and making them feel important.
So less me,
Yes.
and more you.
Shifting that focus outward.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about being other-centered, not self-centered.
Got it.
And it's not about manipulation. It's about genuine empathy and understanding.
What resonates with you most so far?
Honestly, that story about the janitor really stuck with me.
Yeah,
It shows how those simple acts of kindness can ripple outward.
it really can.
And I definitely need to work on my listening skills. I know I can get better at that.
Those are great takeaways. And remember, these are skills you can cultivate with practice.
Right.
The more you focus on understanding and appreciating others, the more natural it will become.
Okay, so we've tackled the foundations of building relationships.
Yes, we have.
But what happens when disagreements inevitably arise? Carnegie has some thoughts on that, right?
He does. The next section is all about how to win people to your way of thinking.
Okay.
And it's less about manipulation and more about navigating those tricky conversations with grace.
All right. I'm ready to hear how to win people over the Carnegie way. Let's dive into that next.
Let's do it. So we're diving into part 3 of how to win friends and influence people.
Okay.
How to win people to your way of thinking.
Hmm.
So that's a bit aggressive.
It does a little bit. Yeah.
But Carnegie wasn't about, forcing people into submission.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Right.
Not exactly the friendliest title.
Yeah.
But knowing Carnegie,
Hmm.
I bet he's got some nuanced insights up his sleeve.
You're right to be skeptical of that title.
Okay.
It's not about manipulation or coercion.
Right.
It's more about persuasive communication with integrity,
Okay.
finding common ground, understanding different perspectives,
Yeah.
and ultimately guiding others towards a shared understanding.
So it's less about winning and more about collaboration and finding a solution that works for everyone.
Precisely.
Okay.
And one of the key principles he emphasizes is avoiding arguments altogether.
Oh, interesting.
Carnegie believed that arguments rarely lead to productive outcomes.
Yeah.
They just escalate emotions, damage relationships,
Right.
and nobody really wins in the end.
I think back to some arguments I've had where I technically won,
Yeah.
but the relationship suffered.
Exactly.
It's like winning the battle but losing the war.
Exactly. It's a Pyrrhic victory.
Right.
So instead of locking horns,
Yeah.
Carnegie suggests trying to understand the other person's perspective.
Okay.
Why do they feel the way they do? What's their reasoning?
That makes sense.
And if you find yourself in the wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically.
That was good.
It shows humility and builds trust.
I can see how that would be disarming.
Right.
If someone owns up to their mistakes,
Mhm.
it makes you more likely to listen to them.
Right. It levels the playing field and creates an environment of mutual respect,
Yeah.
which is essential for any productive conversation.
It's like that quote, the goal of an argument shouldn't be victory but progress.
Yes.
So instead of trying to win an argument,
Yeah.
we should be looking for common ground and building consensus.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Carnegie outlines several techniques for doing this.
Okay.
One is to start by emphasizing points of agreement.
Okay.
This helps to create a positive and collaborative atmosphere from the outset.
So find that yes momentum early on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you can gradually guide the conversation towards the points where you might have differing opinions.
This all makes sense in theory.
Sure.
But what about situations where you really need to convince someone of something?
Yeah.
Like let's say you have a brilliant idea at work,
Okay.
but your boss isn't initially on board.
Yeah.
How do you sway them without resorting to a forceful argument?
Great question. And Carnegie addresses this directly.
Okay.
Instead of dictating your idea,
Right.
frame it as a suggestion or question.
Okay.
This gives your boss a sense of ownership and makes them more likely to buy in.
So it's about empowering them, not dictating to them.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this ties into another one of Carnegie's principles.
Okay.
Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs.
Right.
People are much more likely to support and champion ideas they believe they came up with on their own.
That's brilliant. It's like planting a seed and letting it grow organically.
Exactly.
I like it.
It's a much more effective and sustainable approach than trying to force your ideas onto others.
You mentioned that I was interested in getting buy-in from my team.
Yeah.
These techniques are giving me some serious food for thought in terms of how I approach those conversations.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, these principles aren't just for the workplace.
Right.
They can be applied to any type of relationship.
So to wrap up this section,
Okay.
when it comes to winning people to our way of thinking,
Yeah.
it's about avoiding arguments,
Right.
understanding perspectives,
Absolutely.
finding common ground, and empowering others to feel like they're part of the solution.
Exactly.
Nice.
And while Carnegie has lots of other specific techniques,
Okay.
like dramatizing your ideas
Uh,
or appealing to nobler motives,
right.
the core message is about persuasion through understanding and respect.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful.
Good.
But we're not quite done yet, right?
Not quite.
There's one more part of the book to explore, Be a leader,
Yeah.
even if we don't all have manager in our job titles.
Right.
I think there are leadership skills we can all benefit from in our everyday lives.
I agree. Carnegie's take on leadership is fascinating.
Okay.
He believed that it's about influence, not authority. It's
Yeah.
about inspiring others to be their best.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all aspire to regardless of our formal roles.
All right, I'm ready to dive into Carnegie's leadership principles.
Okay.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
So we've learned how to handle people, make them like us, and even win them to our way of thinking.
Right.
Now let's tackle the final part of how to win friends and influence people. Be a leader.
Okay.
Even if we're not all CEOs
Right.
or running for office,
Yeah.
there's something in this for everyone.
Absolutely. Carnegie believed that leadership isn't about bossing people around.
Right.
It's about inspiring them.
Okay.
It's about influence, not authority.
Gotcha.
And that's something we can all cultivate, whether we're leading a team at work or just trying to be a better friend or parent.
Okay. So less about barking orders from the top down.
And more about motivating and empowering people.
Exactly.
What kind of techniques did Carnegie suggest for achieving that?
Well, one of his biggies is instead of issuing direct orders,
Okay.
try asking questions or framing requests in a way that gives people ownership.
That sounds a lot like letting the other person feel like the idea is theirs,
Yes,
which we talked about earlier.
exactly. It's all connected. Good leadership is about fostering collaboration and making people feel valued.
Right.
And one of the most effective ways to do that is to start with praise and honest appreciation.
So it's back to catching more flies with honey than vinegar.
You could say that,
Yeah.
but it's more than just being nice.
Okay.
It's about recognizing people's strengths, acknowledging their contributions,
Yeah.
and making them feel genuinely seen and appreciated.
Okay.
This creates a positive environment where people are more receptive to feedback and guidance.
I can definitely see how that would be a game changer in a workplace setting.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel constantly criticized or micromanaged.
Right. And even if you need to address a mistake,
Okay.
Carnegie recommends doing it indirectly.
Okay.
Instead of pointing out the flaw directly,
Right.
ask questions that lead the person to recognize the error themselves.
Okay.
It helps them save face and learn from the experience without feeling humiliated.
It's subtle, but I bet it's incredibly effective.
It is.
You're preserving their dignity while still addressing the issue head on.
Exactly. And it's so much better than publicly shaming someone,
Right.
which just breeds resentment and defensiveness.
Okay. So praise first, and if you need to correct, do it indirectly.
Yes.
What other leadership gems did Carnegie offer?
He emphasized the importance of being willing to share your own mistakes.
Oh, interesting.
It shows humility and makes you relatable.
Yeah.
People are more likely to trust and respect a leader who doesn't pretend to be perfect.
Makes you human right.
Exactly.
You're not this untouchable authority figure,
Right.
but someone who's also learning and growing.
Exactly. It fosters a culture of learning where mistakes are seen as opportunities for growth,
Yeah.
not something to be feared or punished for.
You know, this is making me think about how I can be a better leader, not just in my professional life, but in all my relationships.
That's the beauty of Carnegie's work.
Yeah.
These principles are universally applicable,
Right.
whether you're a parent, a teacher, a friend, or a colleague.
Yeah.
These insights can help you build stronger, more positive connections.
As we wrap up our deep dive into how to win friends and influence people,
Okay.
what are some of the key takeaways you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the core message is that success in life, whether it's personal or professional, hinges on our ability to connect with others.
Yeah.
And that connection is built on a foundation of empathy, understanding, and genuine respect.
Makes sense.
Carnegie gives us a roadmap for cultivating those qualities and using them to build stronger, more meaningful relationships.
It's amazing to me how relevant these principles still are.
Really is.
Even though the book was written almost a century ago, it's a testament to Carnegie's understanding of human nature.
Absolutely. While the world has changed dramatically since 1936,
Right.
the fundamental principles of human interaction remain the same. We all crave connection, appreciation, and respect.
So for our listener out there, what's one small change they can make today to start putting these principles into practice?
I'd encourage them to pick one principle that resonated with them
Right.
and make a conscious effort to apply it today. It could be as simple as smiling more, remembering someone's name,
Yeah.
or truly listening during a conversation.
Those are great starting points. And like Carnegie himself said, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you.
Such a powerful quote. It perfectly captures the essence of the book.
Really does.
Shift your focus outward and watch the magic happen.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into how to win friends and influence people.